Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of What Are You Talking About? Thank you for joining us. Today, our guest is Tayla Howe, an absolute legend in the UK CrossFit community. She's a 4 times CrossFit Games Semi-Finals athlete and also a Commonwealth weightlifter for Wales. I absolutely love this episode and as always, hope you do too. Don't forget to like, rate and subscribe to be the first to hear all about our new episodes and content. Please note there were some connection issues during this podcast and we apologise for any disruption. Okay, Tayla, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Good. I know you are super busy training and everything and you've just rushed back. How's current training going? How's kind of off season, I suppose?
So of course not getting to the games changed the season up a little bit. So we decided to kind of carry the season on just a little bit longer and compete at strength and depth, and then kind of go into an off season. Well, have a little bit of a rest after that instead of after semis, and then we started officially training properly last week, midweek, and kind of built it up. So my body's feeling a little bit sore, but it's good to be back.
Absolutely. So as we sit here recording this, today's date, it's the first day of the Games 2023. How does it feel as an athlete, kind of watching? Do you still enjoy watching it? Do you still enjoy kind of all the content around it? Is it kind of bittersweet? What's the feeling you get watching?
Yeah, seeing everyone post the pictures of checking in and getting their stash and stuff is pretty bittersweet, because it's what you train for. You get one weekend a year to perform and then get to the games, which is pretty tough. So yeah, I'm not truly disappointed, which I thought I would feel a little bit different towards, but I feel because I attacked the things that I did in my own respect, that I'm not that disappointed. So I'm looking forward to actually just watching the games and cheering all the people on, and yeah, I think it'll be pretty cool.
It is, yeah. It must be such a strange experience. Also because I suppose from a fan perspective, obviously you watch, and it's with any comp where you are an elite athlete, I suppose, any comp that we watch, non-elite athletes, and we watch these people hurt and push themselves to the limit and be so amazing, you can never really capture or know what they're feeling. But I suppose for you know how much they're hurting, you know how much they're pushing, you know how hard it is for them. Does it make it more enjoyable to watch when you know that, or do you think it's better to have kind of more rose tinted glasses about it?
It's a weird feeling, because whenever you watch somebody work out, you're oh, I wish I was doing that workout, and you always have this thing in your mind that it's not gonna hurt as bad, but then when you're in it hurts just as bad, or if not more than you anticipated. So yeah, I understand how they're all gonna feel on every single workout, and especially the long ones, the run and Helen and the workups, which are just going to be absolutely brutal, because all you can do is just go fast. There's no skill related element to it. It's just how much and how bad do you want to hurt. So them ones is kind of on edge watching it, because you want to feel that hurt and you want to push your limits, because it's what you train for. So but yeah, it's I'm excited to watch it.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk a lot about your kind of experience competing and your history, but I want to start kind of back at the beginning, because you grew up doing gymnastics, is that right? So what was your kind of athletic childhood like? What did you do when you were younger?
So I started off doing gymnastics. I did that until I was 16. And as you do, you dip in and out when you get to that age, because you want to go with your friends and you don't want to go to training after school because you want to go to the park and all that kind of stuff. And then I got into athletics shortly after that. So I did that for a little while. And then I had a stress fracture in my foot from overtraining, because I tend to do that. I tend to overtrain. Days, but I've got the t-shirt for that. And then I kind of found CrossFit off the back of that injury, because I needed to just keep myself going by doing something, so I just can't sit still. So and that's how I kind of fell into the CrossFit world and weightlifting and all of that kind of thing. So
yeah, it seems to be like one of them things. A lot of people that are now elite CrossFit athletes are ex-gymnasts.
yeah.
Do you think there's kind of, obviously there are a lot of similarities in certain movements. How much does it help being an ex-gymnast when you first walk into a CrossFit gym?
Yeah, it definitely helps, because like the mobility and the stuff that you need to pick up the movements firsthand comes from a lot of mobility and power as well. So I think that definitely helped in terms of being mobile for snatching, and of course when it came to like kipping movements, like they're just second nature kind of thing, because you're used to swinging around on the bars and whatnot. So yeah, it definitely transferred over pretty well from the start. And then again, I think CrossFit's got such a variety of disciplines where you're never bored. And I feel like when I came, and it's the same with gymnastics, right? Like you've got 4 pieces. So like when you're in a training session, you're alternating between your beam, your bars, your floor, your vault, and then you go into athletics and it's just one thing, and like the thing is just the same because you just train for that one, like running in a circle kind of thing. And then when it came to CrossFit, it was very relatable to that feeling of gymnastics, where it was like all new and you learn new skills, and yeah, and it's just addictive. It's just addictive. Yeah. So
someone said to me a few weeks ago, and I keep bringing this up every episode, about a CrossFit honeymoon phase, and I was like, yeah, there is such a thing, but it's lasts for a long time. And I think even now you look at, I mean, like use the games for an example. Every year there are new movements and there are new things, there are new tests, like things you'd never ever think about doing. Do you still feel like you get like moments of that honeymoon phase now?
Yeah, I guess so. Like when they introduce, like obviously the go rack at semi-finals, okay, it's like, okay, we need to learn to do muscle ups a little bit differently because you've got a weight on your back, and okay, we need to learn how to jump over a box with a weight on your back, and it's just adapting to new things on the fly. Yeah, which is pretty cool. Like you never get settled up bored, because you're always chasing that next kind of like thrill, I guess, of like what they're gonna throw at you. Yeah,
it's never ending. Yeah. Do you remember your first CrossFit class and or workout?
Do you know what I do? I think very, very vaguely. It was, I want to say that it was front squats. I think maybe handstand push-ups and burpees, I think. And I remember doing the front squats, and I'd obviously done a little bit of strength training through athletics for like the gym side of things, and we'd recently started doing like back squats and stuff, and it was all so new to me. And then when they had the front squats, the class, and I just kept like putting the weight on and they were like, hey, what's going on? That's kind of where like the weightlifting kind of filtered in. Like there's a CrossFit gym and a weightlifting gym, which was like, it's just like a wall between them. Like you walk from the CrossFit gym through into the weightlifting room. And I think the weightlifting coaches like approached me from that side and was like, you should come this side and try weightlifting. So yeah, it kind of happened to kind of work like that.
Yeah, the love affair with the barbell began.
Yeah.
But so how, because obviously like you had, and we'll talk about it now, I suppose, you had a gap, was it of 2 years where your sole focus was weightlifting? Is that about right, timing wise? How long had you been doing CrossFit at that point before you actually were like, I'm going to move into weightlifting full time for the moment?
Yeah, I think I was just doing CrossFit purely just for the fun, focus on too, like there's no big deal, and like I can do a little bit of CrossFit, do a few comps, see if I really enjoy it, and then I can also do the same for weightlifting. And then it came to the point where it was just like, okay, am I gonna solely focus just on weightlifting while still doing the classes and CrossFit, just because I couldn't purely just do weightlifting, I would get so bored. And then that was like 2 to 3 years where I was just like, I kind of put everything, well, the focuses of my sessions would be like weightlifting, and the CrossFit would kind of fit around that. And then and then I had the opportunity to compete for Wales in the Commonwealth Games, and that was kind of like, you know, what I kind of put as the main focus. And then I had opportunities with Great Britain after that, and then there was one day and I just decided I'm just going to go full on in CrossFit now. I'm bored of it. So yeah, here I am.
I mean, it's paid off. So in that period of time where obviously you are at a level where you can go and compete for your country, how quickly did you realize I'm really good at this? And like, when you started CrossFit, and I suppose started the weightlifting aspect of it, how long into it was it like, oh, this, I could go somewhere with this, I could do this?
As in with the weightlifting or with the
weightlifting?
Yeah, it was pretty early on where like I kind of knew I had a talent for weightlifting. So I was like, I would be stupid not to kind of like try it. I was very resistant to it. Like, I'm the type of person, if somebody tells me I should, then I won't. So they're like, you should do this, you should do that, and I'm just like, yeah, maybe. But then when I came around to it in my own time, I was like, okay, I can maybe give it a go and see where it goes. And I guess that's what I did. And when I had obviously the opportunities that come up, I was like, I couldn't never like turn them down at the time, so I kind of just went with it.
And obviously competing at the Commonwealth Games, such an incredible opportunity, experience. Can you explain in a nutshell what that experience was like?
You know what, I literally can't even explain it. It was just like a moment that you'll never forget. It was just amazing. Like, the nerves were so surreal because you wasn't used to feeling that kind of, like, you're used to being on a platform, but being on a platform where you're in front of the whole world was just like, wow, this is crazy. But like, the Australian crowd was just out of this world. And it was just amazing. Like, it feels like yesterday. And then when obviously Birmingham was on like a couple of years ago, I was just like, I've got such big FOMO now. Actually, last year. Because I planned to kind of want to come back for that, and then I didn't, and yeah, it was a bit. But people did say it had absolutely nothing on the Commonwealth in Australia, so I was just like, right, I feel better now.
It's so interesting, and it's such a different, like, I think about this with weightlifting all the time. You when you watch weightlifting, it looks so lonely almost out there. Like, you watch a CrossFit competition, you've got kind of 10, 15, 20 competitors on the floor, and as much as you're working out alone, you've got people either side of you. Whereas weightlifting, you are literally, you come out, there's a spotlight on you. How do you manage the nerves and the pressure? Because the thought of that for me makes me feel a little bit sick. Like, yeah, how do you manage it?
Yeah, it definitely took some getting used to. I feel like it was a good transfer from gymnastics, because it's the same, right? When you're doing gymnastics, you're very much like on a time, or you're on your own. And then obviously with athletics as well, like, you're on your own, you're almost against the clock. And then with getting used to being on the platform, it's just experience. It's just like doing the same with CrossFit, right? It's just like how much experience you can get, like getting used to like the little things, and getting used to like where you need to look, because everything's like completely different. And but I love it. I love that feeling. I love being on the platform. It's amazing. So yeah.
Do you think at any point you'll go back to that?
Yeah. I will go back. I've already like toyed with the idea a little bit this year. Maybe do some comps like the back end of the year. And then the Commonwealth qualifying year starts like 18 months before. So I think think I'll put myself in them competitions where I need to be ranked so I can get my ranking back, and then obviously hopefully be chosen at the end of it, but we'll see. Yeah.
Exciting times, exciting. So CrossFit then, so you decided after you were going to go full in CrossFit. Did you have a goal, as in this is going to be my full-time career, this is going to be where I'm at, when you chose to do CrossFit full-time? What was the initial goal?
Yeah, it was kind of like an overnight decision with going full in on CrossFit. Like 1 minute I was weightlifting, and literally like fast forward less than 24 hours I was just like, right, I'm doing CrossFit. I had an email off the GB coaches and said I'd just been selected for the Europeans, and I knew there and then I was just like, I'm not accepting it. I'm gonna put all my efforts into CrossFit and see where I come out, and that's what I did. And that was in, I want to say 2019. It was just before COVID. And yeah, that's exactly what I did. I just thought, right, it's kind of like now or never. If I'm going to experience it, I'm just going to go all in on it. And then I kind of like, retired from weightlifting and then threw myself in the deep end.
It's such a, I suppose that with CrossFit, and I know it's a growing sport, but there's everyone kind of, when you're at kind of your level and elite level, I suppose, and correct me if I'm wrong here, everyone kind of has the same goal, right? Get into the games and winning. Is that when you were like, I'm going to do full-time CrossFit, was that the goal?
Yeah, I wanted to get to the games, of course. But I just wanted to kind of compete in CrossFit with a purpose to start with, because I was doing it just for fun on the side of weightlifting. And I seemed to come back with like, okay results by not having a coach or by putting any focus into it. So I thought, do you know what? Yeah, I'm just gonna see what happens. It was the year when they changed all of the when they did sanctionals, and then there's like loads of backfill spots. And I remember I signed up for strength and depth in 2019, and I finished 10th out of like all the top girls, and I was just like, okay, this could be a pretty and out like the game spot went right back down to 9th place, and I came 10th. So I was just like, oh, like this is pretty cool. And then yeah, that's literally like the day after that, that's when I reached out to a coach and was just like, can you coach me? And like kind of just went from there.
Yeah, it's one of them things that it's, again, I suppose even from 2019 to now, the level of competition has changed hugely. I think particularly in the UK, we now have these elite categories which we weren't having before. I want to talk about a couple of comps you've done. Obviously you've 2019, and then we didn't have any kind of in-person events for a while, but 2021 you got to semi-finals, and it was all changed. It was semi-finals rather than sanctionals and all these changes. What was that experience like? Obviously I assume like COVID wise you hadn't really been training in a box, or things were all online and different. What was that experience like coming out of 2021 and going into a huge live competition?
Yeah, it's like, you know what, it's always something that I really wanted to do. I did team regionals 2018 in Berlin, and that was the year of the Commonwealth. So I was literally, I think what I can't remember which way around it was. No, it was the Commonwealth, and then I flew back, and then in a week I was going to Berlin and competing as a team. So it was like, that was the year my sole focus was purely weightlifting, and I was just doing team because I thought, oh, why not? And then being in Berlin, and that's when my mindset kind of started to change a little bit. And I remember watching the individuals and being like, oh my God, I want to be there. And then the following year when they changed everything with COVID and sanctions and all this kind of stuff, I was a bit gutted. And then when it reversed back to like the old, when they announced like this season where it was going to be, technically like regionals again in Berlin and Europe, and I was like, yes, like this is, because last season was obviously different because it was split and it wasn't the regionals. It was like London's not the same as Berlin, like and when they announced that and it was in Berlin, I was like, this is so cool. Like this is what I seen. This is what like made me want to do CrossFit back in 2018, like full time. And now I get to actually go and experience that. And it was a pretty cool feeling that this season being there.
Yeah. It was really interesting because I was at Strength in Depth 2022, so the London semi-finals, yeah. And it was really interesting to watch the dynamic of actually having less people in one of them semi-finals to going in to a Europe semi-final again this year. How does it as an athlete change the way you look at it going, like when it's basically doubling in size, right? So opportunity is obviously harder, but also the comp's bigger. Does it make a massive difference year to year when you're competing?
Yeah, like it wasn't really a comparison in terms of like the vibe and the feeling and the experience from being like London. Obviously it was a great event, like Strength in Depth put on a hell of a show, and then but it wasn't the same. Like you can't compare athletes who are doing different workouts, and like that's just my opinion. Like you're not, taking the people in Europe who have done the same workouts and showcasing like everyone's done head to head. And then obviously like getting a last chance spot from that was pretty cool, and then going to Berlin and then experiencing, like I say, like that old school regionals effect where like everyone is in one, and it's 60 people and it's just like crazy. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah.
What was your favorite semi-finals workout this year?
This year, you know what, like I enjoyed all of them in different ways. I was looking forward a lot to the ring muscle up one, but obviously like I had a lot of judging problems on that one, so the one I was looking forward to turned out to be a little bit of a shit show, which seems to always be the case. Like you go to and you get fucked over by someone else, so that's what that is. And then like the first event was pretty cool. Like we put a lot of work and effort into kind of like fitness and that, so that was a pretty cool way to kick off the weekend.
Yeah, it was. I think this year, as you say, going back to that old school vibe, watching not only them 60 athletes all do the same workout, but actually across the world, watching everyone and comparing was so fun to watch. I want to kind of jump back slightly because this is also a year that you came back from injury and a massive operation, right? So going back, was it kind of, let me get my dates right here, but kind of like summer, autumn 22, you had pretty major operation. Am I right there in my dates? You feel like you're thinking about it, am I?
So it'll be a year next month that I had surgery. So competing this season was a lot of mental battles in terms of like, I have to learn to trust my body in ways that I haven't for a very long time. So I feel like that maybe is the contrast of like the two seasons where like, like last season in Strength in Depth, I competed on a full-blown injury, and then this year I was recovered so well from the injury where that was more of a test for me, not very different experiences. But yeah, the injury is a year. I did it 2 or 3 weeks before Strength in Depth. That's when I injured my knee, and then obviously I had to compete on it, and then
it's such a massive thing. And I think even as someone, so I don't compete, I'm not an elite athlete, but the thought of someone saying to me, you're gonna have to have knee surgery and you're not going to be able to train and all this, it's quite a fearful thing. How do you prepare for that as someone who is an elite full-time athlete?
Like touch wood, that is the first injury I've had in CrossFit where you have niggles and you need a little bit of deloading and that kind of thing. But like in terms of needing surgery, like that was the first thing I had to deal with. And it was pretty, obviously it's pretty scary, but I knew I had to have it at the same time. So I was kind of preparing myself mentally for like, okay, what's training going to look like? How long am I out for? You know, what comps can I come back for? And that kind of thing. But I definitely, like, looking back, I wish I just chilled a little bit more with it, because like when you get to this time in the season, and you have time off and you're just like, oh, I'd love to have another week. I'd love to have another week. But when you're injured, you're almost like battling with yourself to be like, no, I need to do more training. It's not, because you need to recover, and it's the same thing. But because you know it's an injury, it's different, because you feel like you're getting less fit. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
So yeah, it was a tough battle, but oh my god, it made me so much stronger, and it taught me so much about my body, and like I would never change what had happened. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
I think it's so important, like, to advertise that, because there will be people, I'm sure, that know they need surgery or something like that, and they're like, no, it's going to push me back, but the fact that you've just said it's made you stronger is amazing. And you qualified for the Dubai Fitness Champs right before your surgery, and then going to that, how long was it after? Was it 3 months? Like, didn't seem that long. I think from an outsider's perspective, it probably felt like a really long time for you rehabbing. But looking back, are you glad you made that decision to have something to go back to?
Yeah and no. Again, comes with experience. I'm just like taking a backseat and just chilling a little bit more and being more ready for the season, because that knocked me back another 2 months. So like I could have had an extra 2 months of fitness going into semi-finals. But you live and you learn, right? So yeah, I thought, okay, I'll give myself a little bit of a challenge and something to focus on. I'll do the qualifiers, and my surgeon was really good, so he let me pick the date of when I could have the op. So I was like, okay, I'll do the qualifiers and I'll go in the day after for the operation. And that will give me like a decent amount of time to kind of, you know, get CrossFit fit enough to do Dubai. And that's what I did. And then after, I think it was the second day in Dubai in the morning, whenever, or was it the night? I'm not sure, but that's where, with the hand clean, and yeah, my knee it was my other knee, by the way, which kind of just like give up, and was just like, yeah, and then I had to come back and have injections in that, and then of course that set me back like another month or two. So it was a learning curve. Yeah.
If you were to do it again, would you say yes to Dubai?
No, I would just embrace the rest and be like, you know what, like, it's not the end of the world, and rest is just as important as training, and your body's been through a trauma, so give it the time it needs, and kind of listen to your body telling you when's the right time to go back to training, and not like force it back into training mentally as well. So that was an experience, but I don't regret it. It was like, if I didn't injure my knee in Dubai, I would never have started working with Jousey for my rehab, and I'm like, and now both knees are in the best place they've ever been. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like it happens in a way which brings even better things from it, but it's just really shit at the time. So yeah, now I know what my handle and what I can't.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it probably doesn't help as well that the first event in Dubai was like the longest climb ever, which can't have been good for anyone's knees.
Yeah, do you know what? It was actually not that bad. Nobody had DOMs from it.
Wow.
It was just the mental aspect of it was fucking brutal. It was an experience. So yeah, it was pretty cool, that event.
It was very cool. I think Dubai are very good at putting on a very cool show, so I'm sure the experience was amazing. And then obviously, like you mentioned, going into semis, a completely different season. When you don't get the result you're hoping for at semis, and I won't go into it too much, how do you deal with that, like, mentally? Because, and I firstly also I love, because you talk about like you have a coach and you do a lot of mentoring and stuff, and you talk about that a lot on your socials and stuff, but how do you, when you've been working towards one goal potentially in particular, and then that doesn't happen, how do you come out the weekend? Like, do you give yourself a few days to be like, oh, or do you just go straight back into it? What's the process?
Again, I think this year was very different. Like I say, this year was a lot of learning to trust my body instead of, like, you know, learning to trust my fitness. While as last year was kind of, you know, it was very different. But coming off the back of it, like, you put everything into, like, games ticket, like strategies of workouts, and like it's just relentless. And I feel like the back end of the weekend, when it was over, like the last event, I was just like, oh, fuck, that's over. And that's the dangerous territory that you're in, because you don't want to feel like that. And that's when, you know, like, you've put too much time into the outcome and not enjoyed, like, the process throughout the training leading up and throughout the weekend of competing. So, like, coming out of the weekend, it was kind of just like, oh, like, obviously, like, emotions are high, and you've put everything you put everything into that games ticket and blah blah blah. But I feel like it's taught me this time round I'm going into this next season with a completely different, like, it's not, yeah, it's cool, it's a games ticket, it's obviously the end goal, but it's not, you know, it's not life or death. And then that's what I kind of practice. That's why I wanted to compete so soon after Berlin, because in strength and depth, is because I wanted to practice that while it was fresh. I wanted to go in and, like, each workout was like, nah, it's a workout, like, let's go enjoy, let's go chill. And, like, you come out and you win, and you're like, fuck, it does work. It does work when you, like, approach things in a more, like, adaptable way. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I feel like, yeah, it sucked because, you know, put everything into it, but I've, again, just taken so much more learning experiences out of it than if I had just got the ticket to the games. So yeah, but of course that is the goal, so I'm not going to sit here not, but I think I'll approach it differently next season.
Amazing. I know, I love that. And I also think for the UK community, having people like yourself in strength and depth, you've obviously come off of semi-finals and go into that event, it makes it even more fun as well, and it's like an extra thing. And also for your competitors, because they're like, oh cool, like, semi-finals athlete. It was a really cool weekend. I got to be there. What was it like, kind of being back home turf, all that? How was that weekend for you?
Yeah, do you know what, it was just so much fun. Like, again, going into it with a different, just, like, enjoyment, and, you know, just having no strategy on workouts, really, just going like, okay, let's go full send and see what happens. You don't get to do that, especially at semi-finals. Like, everything's so tactical, and so it was just so good to just do CrossFit and just let loose and just enjoy a workout. And just, yeah, it was so much fun. Like, my parents came to watch, like, they travel everywhere with me, but they came in the camper van. So in between events, I was just like having a nap, having a shower, having food, and it was just like, oh, this is great. It was just fun. It was just, like, really nice environment.
It was a cool event. How much, or if at all, do you change from when you're off the floor to when you're on the floor? Like, is there a switch when it says 3 2 1 go and you're like right in the zone? Do you, like, when do you get into the zone leading up to it, to each event?
Probably like 45 minutes to an hour before I start kind of setting in and being like, right, my warm-up's going to take this long, and I'm going to do this, and then I'll start, like, mentally preparing in my head, like, okay, this is how I would like the workout to look, or like start visualizing, like, you know, like the transitions and that kind of thing. So yeah, about 45 to an hour before the event.
Do you have like a I can't even think of it now. I'm just going to like a Beyonce Sasha Fierce vibe here. But like, do you have an alter ego is the word I'm looking for? Do you feel like you have like an on the floor alter ego, or are you still just Tayla, like wherever you are?
I think I'm always me, but of course, like my training switch and my competition switch are more or less identical. So I feel like, because I practice that so much, like, you know, you do that maybe 3-4 times a day. It's slightly different in competition because you've got a different environment around you and you're on like a time. But no, like the switch is like, okay, 45 minutes, like if I know I'm doing a qualifier in the gym or whatever, like it's the same switch. So yeah, and my coach kind of feeds off, he knows that as well, like in the gym. He kind of knows if I'm really like anxious or nervous for a certain workout, because he just kind of just lets me be. And then I just kind of look at him and give him the nod and be like, right, it's time to go. And then, so yeah, I feel like that kind of transitions well into being on the floor.
Absolutely. It's really cool to watch, as you say, like when you see people on the floor and you can tell they are in such a zone, particularly in an event like strength and depth, where it's so like the crowd is like on top of you almost.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
help or hinder having people so close?
Yeah, like whether the crowd's a million people or 2 people, I really don't notice it. Obviously, like you feel the atmosphere is different. Like obviously in Berlin to strength and depth is a lot different. Like you feel that, but you don't know it, if that makes sense. Yeah. The snatch event at Sid was very, very different, because I was in the first lane and the barrier was like, you know, 2 meters away and everyone was standing in front of me. So that was somewhere where the crowd would be, like, they would put you off. Mm-hmm. That was challenging. But that's the only time I think I've ever felt the crowd be challenging, is because like when you're snatching, it's a very technical movement and you're like, fucking hell, people like eyeballing you 2 meters away and you can't look up, you don't know where to look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But other than that, like it's totally fine.
Yeah, it was that snatch event. It was really interesting to watch that they did it in that second arena, because it was so much closer and I couldn't do it. Like if I'm not that obviously I'm an elite athlete, but if I'm like doing a lift in the gym, I face the wall. I'm like, I can't look at people. So I can only imagine when you are under that much like pressure and everything.
Yeah.
And talking of pressure, and this is probably going to be my last question, Sid, but obviously going into it, you come off the back of semi-finals. Everyone knows who you are, I suppose, in the sense of your level. Do you feel pressure that you should go in and win that weekend?
I guess not so much the pressure, it's like the inner fire, which is just like, no, I should be fucking winning this. Yeah. So I'm good. Because you know, you kind of know your worth, and you know, it's what you train for, it's what you work for every single day. So and that was a kind of a switch where I think I had to find, like I spoke to my mental coach about it and she was just like, Tayla, you need to be going into workouts and thinking, I'm going to fucking win this workout, and you need to practice that. You know, you don't need to settle for like, so I thought, you know what, yeah, I'm gonna practice that, and yeah, it worked. So
it did. Yeah, it was a really, really great weekend and fun to watch. I'm gonna let you go shortly, but I have a couple of quick fire questions at the end. But before that, what's next for you? I know you've got big plans coming, a big year, but what's kind of next in, I suppose, your CrossFit and I suppose personally as well, what's next for you?
Next for me, well, you could probably call me a gypsy this last 12 months, because I've literally like had so many different roofs over my head. But it's been fun. So next is I go doing Team Madrid. So I'll be going over there the 29th of August, then coming back to the UK on the 12th of September. And then I fly to Australia on the 20th, so I'm taking a whole new kind of journey, and just, do you know what, I'm ready for it. I'm ready for change. I'm ready for like to break out of the UK CrossFit scene and just like take the opportunities. Like the world is so big. So yeah, that is my plan. And then yeah, see what comes in it.
See what happens. I think it's great, and I think as much as UK CrossFit has grown rapidly in the last few years, apart from probably the States, it's huge in Australia, and there's so many incredible athletes and incredible opportunities. So how exciting.
Yeah, it's so overwhelming. Like I sit here now and I'm like, this weather, like it's literally pissing down. It's just, I want to be in just an environment where you wake up and it's sunny every day and people are like happy, and do you know what I mean? It's just a bit depressing. So yeah, like I say, like the UK CrossFit scene's big, but it's tiny compared to the rest of the world. I'm just ready to escape it. I'm ready for change. So I'm really excited for it.
That would be amazing. Oh, I'm excited to hear about it and see what comes. Right, I'm gonna throw some quick fire questions at you. There are only 4 of them. I'll keep them short and sweet. From actually, I'm gonna ask this in 2 parts. I'd like to know, it's probably the same answer, but from a weightlifting perspective and then in a CrossFit perspective, what's your favorite lift?
Snatch.
In both?
Yeah.
Fair enough. In CrossFit, what is your favorite overall movement?
Anything with like, yeah, ring muscle ups, burpees, yeah.
That semi-final workout, basically.
Yeah, basically that semi-final. Yeah, basically that workout. But hey ho, we live, we learn.
What about your favorite benchmark WOD?
Do you know what? I'm going to be one of those people and say, like, I haven't done many of them.
How was Linda?
Linda, yes, obviously it was a little bit different with dumbbells, but very good workout. Yeah, again, that's probably one of the hardest ones I've done. Linda was pretty tough. Yeah, we'll go with Linda because I've done it recently.
I had someone on here, she was like, I don't know any benchmark WODs. I was like, okay. Question. Okay, then my final question for you, and I know as you just said you're going Team in Madrid, but if you could choose and you could go, you had a spot at the games and you got to pick your dream team next to you, who would you have on it?
As in team, as in going.
So if you had another female and two men with you, who would you have?
You know, this is a funny question because I was literally speaking about this morning and thinking, could I potentially do a season, go in team next season, just to like have a bit of fun. It's a hard one, I don't know. Definitely some sort of super team, right, where you could just like pick one from each country and just have a mix.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what, I don't know, but anybody who just is fun and brings good energy and is just down for a good time, like on and off the floor, like that is just it, really. Yeah,
amazing. Yeah, it's all about, I think that's the thing with team, right? You've got to have fun and you've got to like the people you're working out with.
Yes, 100%.
Well, thank you so much for your time and for the stories. It's been great, and we are wishing you all the best in your future endeavours and can't wait to see all that's to come.
Yes, excited.